What I'm going to discuss to you right now is about the Code of Ethics for CE, Fundamental Principles and Fundamental Canons, and this is for your subject in C51 2018, the new curriculum, and C51 and for the old curriculum for civil engineering laws, ethics, contracts, and specifications. Included in this discussion would be a quick view of the Republic Act 544, which is an act to regulate the practice of civil engineering in the Philippines, and also together with the Presidential Decree 1594, which is prescribing policies, guidelines, rules, and regulations for government infrastructure contracts. However, we are going to dig deeper into each of the RA 544 and 1594. After we'll be able to discuss the Code of Ethics for CE, Fundamental Principles, and Fundamental Canons. Now, let us start with the Code of Ethics for CE, or for civil engineers. It shall be considered unprofessional and inconsistent with honorable and dignified bearing for any registered civil engineer if he or she is to act for his clients in professional matters otherwise than as a faithful agent or trustee, or to accept any remuneration other than his stated charges for services rendered to his clients. Maybe upon reading on this number one code of ethics for CE, you will literally have in mind um, what is um, commonly referred to as under the table payments, or if some clients would want to have a faster processing of their documents, there could be a point wherein you will offer you extra money aside from your usual rates or remuneration so that you will prioritize their documents. However, under the Code of Ethics, you should not be accepting or you should not be tolerating any of this act since it is against um, the ethics of a civil engineer. It would be unprofessional for us to do that. Next is still, it is unprofessional for us to attempt or injure falsely or maliciously, directly or indirectly, the professional reputation, prospects, or business of another engineer. Mainly, this could be rooted to what we call as jealousy in work or in the business. However, as as an ethical engineer or civil engineer, you should not be doing any negative or any bad things against your fellow civil engineers or fellow professional just to make you look good. It is very common, especially if you will be working in the real world as an engineer, as a civil engineer, wherein other colleagues might get jealous of you, especially if you are doing good in your work. So, some of your colleagues who are jealous to you might be pulling you down and will be making up stories that could make you look bad to your employer. In order for you to avoid situations like this, just keep focus on what you are doing and never entertain, and at the same time never do this kind of thing against your fellow fellow engineer or your workers. Next is it is still unprofessional for us as a civil engineer to attempt to supplant another engineer after definite steps have been taken toward his employment. So, sample situation for this is if you are both working together for a higher level position in your employment, and then your fellow engineer or your fellow coworker had done steps ahead of you in goodwill. However, since you also want to be ahead of him or her, then you sorted on doing something bad, which can make your work ahead of him or her, then it is very unethical for you to do that. Um, Let us think for a direct example or direct situation of this. Say, for example, if even as a student, we can make a sample situation for this one. Say, if the teacher is giving you an activity and then you are a bit lazy to start ahead on the activity. However, some of your classmates had been starting already doing the activity. But since you want to compete with them, trying to look good to your teacher, then you simply copy what your classmates are doing, then it is too bad and too unethical for you to do that. Therefore, as a student, as a start, make sure to avoid behaviors like that so that you won't be able to bring it in the real world when you will be working as a civil engineer soon. Next is still it will be unprofessional and unethical for us as a civil engineer to compete with another engineer for employment on the basis of his professional charges by reducing his usual charges and in his manner attempting to underbid after being informed of the charges named by another. Sample situation on this one is, say, if you own a company and also other companies um, are included in the bidding wherein you join. However, since you wanted to win in that certain bidding of a construction project, then you try to give uh, money to the officiating officials, um, to which other bidders, of course, doesn't have any knowledge of, then it is very unethical for you to do that. Also, sometimes there are some firm wherein they try to befriend the bidding officials, and it will end up the bidding official giving them informations for all the prices of other bidders. Therefore, um, they can already adjust their submitted price and make it or try to lower it down so that they'll be the one to win in the bidding. By doing things like this, then you are no longer doing a fair play, which means very unprofessional since considering the word bidding, you should do it fairly with other bidders. You should always be careful, even if you're just an employee or even an owner of your own construction firm. Try to avoid things like this. Next, Still, it is unprofessional and unethical for us to review the work of another engineer for the same client except with the knowledge or consent of such engineer or unless the connection of such engineer with the work has been terminated. When this number five was discussed, um, there's a question that has been raised that why can't we review the work of other engineers since it would just be for the purpose of trying to make sure that his work is okay. However, it is very clear here that except with the knowledge or consent of such engineer or unless the connection of such engineer with the work has been terminated or unless if you are considering an employee of a certain company, do not ever try to review the work of your colleague if you are not asked by your employer, since it will create issue with your colleague who is doing the work. If your employer did not ask you anything to review his or her work, then do not do anything about the work since it will just make your colleague look like making mistakes or cannot be trusted. Also, if you are going to attempt to do or to review the work of another engineer, then it means that you are always suspecting that his work is not good enough. And having this kind of mindset is very unethical since considering that he is already an engineer that you should have trusted his skills and abilities because he already got to where he is already. Like he became an engineer, then trust him as an engineer unless it would be your job to review their work, then you can do that. But if not, then never do that. Next is still it is unprofessional and unethical for us as a civil engineer to advertise in self-laudatory language or in any other manner derogatory to the dignity of the profession. So, meaning self-laudatory language, advertise in self-laudatory language, it means even if you're already a civil engineer someday, just try to be humble and not to be boastful. Anyway, um, your profession and your work ethics will say more rather than what you will be talking. And then do not also do any derogatory things that could affect the dignity of our profession as a civil engineer. There could be a lot of things that can bring negative effect to our profession. This is to avoid um, us or from being from like if we will be doing such things, then there could be a possibility where our license as a civil engineer could be revoked. So always try to be ethical and professional, whether you are in work or outside work, because you are now trusted or you are now holding an honor related to the profession that you are working hard for how many years in college and after the licensure exam. Now, um, we will talk about the Number seven, which is still it is unprofessional and unethical to use the advantages of a position to compete unfairly with engineers in private practice. Advantages of a salaried position to compete unfairly with engineers in private practice. Okay, sample to this one is um, if you are both working or competing to get a certain project. However, you are an engineer of a government office, and then your competitor is an engineer of a private company. And since you really want to get that project, then you try to use all your connections in the government so that the that project will be um, given to you. So of course, with the representative in the private company, since they are only a private company and considering that they are still a small company, then they have less connections, then they cannot surely win the project. By doing this, it means it is very unethical and unprofessional. Also, um, we can give also a situation wherein civil engineering students will be sent under OJT or on the job training. And since these on the job training civil engineering students will be at some point working together with already professional civil engineers. I've heard stories wherein professional civil engineers are behaving like arrogant and trying to like look down on the OGT students, and they tried to make the OGT students feel very small instead of giving them training on how to feel like being a civil engineer. So, doing things like this is also considered unethical and unprofessional. So, never always take advantage of your position to unfairly deal with other engineers or even other co workers in a certain company. Now, still, it is unprofessional and unethical if a civil engineer will act in any matter or engage in any practice which will tend to bring discredit on the honor or dignity of the engineering position. In the sample picture, I am showing to you a substandard road. It is commonly happening in our country wherein some contractors are not really following the standard materials suggested to be used in certain road projects. Maybe this is for them to gain more profit from a certain project, or we do not know what could be the underlying reasons why they are doing this. However, engaging into this kind of act is already considered as bringing discredit and honor to our profession in the civil engineering industry. So, as much as possible, try to do um, good ethics, good work ethics related to your work. unrelated to your colleagues, and try to avoid any shortcut, and try to avoid any um, situation that could bring a negative impact to our profession as a civil engineer. Now let us go to the fundamental principles. Civil engineers should uphold and advance the integrity, honor, and dignity of the civil engineering profession by number one, using their knowledge and skill for the enhancement of human welfare and environment. Here, we have to consider, or we have to know that we are not only getting our profession as a civil engineer simply to build and build and build, but we have to design and build something for the purpose of enhancing the human welfare and the environment. Right now, it is a very well known issue in Dumaguete, the 174 hectare reclamation or the smart city proposed by the officials of Dumaguete. There could be two sides of the issue, the pros and the cons, and those who say yes and those who say no of the project. But in my own opinion, as a civil engineer, even if at some point it shows development of the city or the island, but it also clearly shows negative impact on the environment, then I am against on that project. So in this simple example, um, there is no longer consideration on the enhancement of the environment in regards to this kind of project. Therefore, like as a civil engineer or as a professional, you should also think that the project that you are doing is not giving a negative impact to the environment, to the human welfare, or even to the animal welfare. You should always consider mm, the good impact for everybody. Number two, being honest and impartial and serving with fidelity the public, their employers, employees, and clients. Of course, we should always uphold and advance the integrity, honor, and dignity of being honest and serving our employers, employees, and clients in full respect also, because if we will not practice like that, then there's a huge possibility wherein those clients or people working with us will no longer trust us. It is always important for us to do work with transparency and complete honesty. Next is number three, we should always uphold and striving to increase the competence and prestige of civil engineering profession. So let me clarify this. Striving to increase the competence and prestige of the civil engineering profession. So I just changed it. Striving to increase the competence and prestige of the pre- striving to increase the competence and prestige of the civil engineering profession. Um, even if we are already being part of good profession, which is civil engineering. However, we also know that there are lots of other departments in the engineering industry, and also that includes architecture and interior designing. So, in this manner, um, I'm not saying that we should always compete or we should always consider them as rivals, but um, the reason of why we should always strive to increase the competence and prestige of civil engineering profession is so that um, clients and companies to whom we will be working with as a civil engineer would always appreciate and consider our profession as a and highly like profession that can be trusted, especially in our designs and work ethics. Next is we should always uphold in supporting the professional and technical societies of their discipline. So, supporting the professional and technical societies of their discipline. For whatever profession that we'll be working with, we should always support the professional and technicalities of whatever societies that they are in. Just like for us as a civil engineer, we have the organization referred as Philippine Institute of Civil Engineers. Then other department of engineering has also their own organization. Then we should also support their organizations so that we can work together as one and will make like will bring each other up to the top and not bringing down um, other professionals. So it should always be our aim to bring others, um, like make them make them good and try to appreciate what they are doing so that in return they will also appreciate the good things that we are doing. Now we'll go to the fundamental canons. Number one, civil engineers shall hold paramount the safety, health, and welfare of the public and shall strive to comply with the principles of sustainable development in the performance of their duties. So, as what I have said earlier, we should not only build and build and build without considering the safety, health, and welfare of the public and the environment. Um, it is our um, job to make sure that the project that we will be working should always consider the welfare of the of everybody. Next is civil engineers shall perform services only in areas of their competence. So This means that as a civil engineer, you should only work um, in projects wherein you are confident of, or you are um, advised to work on. And at some point, some civil engineers confused on doing work for um, architects. I mean, some civil engineers are already doing work of architects. So this thing should be um, limited, because if we will be doing things that should be done by architects, then we are already getting or making their profession like non-existent. And also, even if you are a civil engineer already, it is undeniable that there could be some work related to civil engineering wherein you are not confident of. Then if your employer will ask you, are you confident to do this project? And in yourself you are not, but since you wanted to impress your employer, then you will say, yes, I am confident. Then it is unethical for you to do that. Just be honest, like saying, I'm not confident to do that project, but I am willing to undergo training if you want me to assign on that project. Then that could be a better way to communicate with your employer. Next is, civil engineers shall issue public statements only in an objective and truthful manner. Um, there could be a point wherein you will be asked to issue public statements, especially if maybe your project involved in a failure, or maybe your project is involved in a huge like issue wherein you need to show, or you need to inform the public of what is really going on. Then what you have to do is make your statement in an objective and truthful manner. Do not add, or do not put less details. However, make sure to give the exact information about what you should let the public know. Like, make as concise but complete details so that the public will really know of what is really going on. Never add or never make it less. Yeah, just the exact details, informations, or statements for the public to know. Next, number 4, civil engineers shall act in professional matters for each employer or client as faithful agents or trustees, and shall avoid conflicts of interest. Yes, it is very common also in workplace, wherein if there's jealousy that will exist, then conflict of interest will really happen. Or if there's greed that will exist, conflict of interest will really happen. So try to avoid feeling jealous or feeling greedy to whatever position or to whoever colleague in the company that you are working with, because it is very unethical and unprofessional. Next is, civil engineers shall build their professional reputation on the merit of their services and shall not compete unfairly with others. Yes. You should build your professional reputation by simply doing good work, but not that never make your like never make your background as a civil engineer very good by um, competing unfairly with others, or say by I can give you a situation. Say you want to make your civil engineering background, or as a construction firm owner, you want to have your company background really look good. Then as much as number of projects you want, and then you want to list it down, but um, to know in reality you are always like doing unfair practice of bidding, wherein you try to befriend or give money to the bidding officials so that you will always win in every bidding situation. Then this could be an example wherein you are already getting merit or good reputation for your company. However, in reality, you are competing unfairly. Next is civil engineers shall act in such a manner as to uphold and enhance the honor, integrity, and dignity of the civil engineering profession. So this is always repeated that we should always uphold and enhance the honor, integrity, and dignity of the civil engineering profession. You should not forget this one, even as a student, and even you will become professional civil engineers soon. Always uphold and enhance the honor, integrity, and dignity of the civil engineering profession, because you have chosen this profession. Therefore, practice the good ethics in this profession. Then, um, I think it is the last fundamental canons wherein civil engineers shall continue their professional development throughout their careers and shall provide opportunities for the professional development of those civil engineers under their supervision. So, to continue the professional development, sample of this is it does not mean that you have graduated civil engineering and passed the licensure exam, then your civil engineering career will end there, or uh, there could be a way wherein you can still advance and develop your civil engineering pursuit, like taking masters in civil engineering and then proceeding to a doctorate of civil engineering, or if not, simply trying to gain more knowledge on any other aspect related to civil engineering by simply doing your own research, or even making research and make it published and do publications, and also at the same time like sharing your knowledge to young civil engineers, or even to students in civil engineering. So by doing this, you are performing the number 7, wherein you are continuing the professional development as a civil engineer. So this is what we have right now for Code of Ethics for Civil Engineering, Fundamental Principles, and Fundamental Canons. I'd like you to check more on our next discussion related to civil engineering laws and ethics. Thank you.